Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Lucas, CEO of TaxPlanIQ, and welcome to today's webinar focused on how financial advisors win the high net worth game. Before I jump into everything with you all today, and we're going to go on a little bit of a journey, it's going to be a lot of fun. I just want to make sure, can everybody see and hear me okay? So you can just type it in the chat or give a thumbs up or one of the emojis or something. Just I want to make sure everybody can see and hear me okay. Excellent. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, guys. Jake, you like that choice. Good. Always like the bumper music, right? Sarah, thank you, Sarah. Awesome. All right, guys. So we're going to jump in. We're going to go, like I said, a little bit of a journey. We're going to talk about winning that high net worth game. We're going to talk about the ways that you can really separate yourself in the marketplace and really create a difference for your clients in the end, and do things maybe that you've never been able to do before. So we're going to talk, kind of a wide range of things. A little bit about me, just so you guys have a little background. Like I said, my name is Dave Lucas. I'm the CEO of TaxPlanIQ. Six-time Inc. 5,000 entrepreneur, best-selling author, investor, founder of the Misfit Entrepreneur podcast. Also a pretty heavy Ironman World Championship competitor. Live in Columbus, Ohio. If any of you guys are in the area, you guys are Buckeyes. Awesome to have you with us. I live there with my wife and daughter. And a lot of people ask me, Dave, you sold multiple companies, you kind of semi-retired years ago. Like, why are you back in the game? Why are you CEO of TaxPlan IQ? And my honest answer to that is several years ago when I did exit my last company that I spent about a decade building, I never expected to get back in the game. Honestly, I was content to invest the money that I'd made and, didn't have any issues living off of that and the fruits that it produced. And started getting asked though about 6 months in. I was bored, as you can imagine, right? And started getting asked to sit on boards and to consult with software companies where I've always played, and so consult with like fast-growing younger software companies that were looking to really scale and go to 50, 100 million and so on. And so found a niche doing some of that, had a lot of fun, and was introduced to Jackie Meyer, the founder of TaxPlan IQ, during that time. And started working with Jackie and the team at TaxPlan IQ and helped redo a lot of things in the business and how we approach the market and everything else. But really fell in love with this industry and this type of solution. It is really hard to find a true win-win-win, like I like to call it, in the software space. A lot of people will buy a software, right? And they'll use it and they'll need to use it for certain things, but it's really hard to quantify ROI and really know exactly how it helps the client or to the level that it can help a client. But with tax planning and like what we do at Tax Plan IQ, it's cut and dry. Look, we save you this much in taxes by enacting these tax strategies. It's very clear, right? And that produces the ROI for the advisor or the CPA that's working with them in the fees that they can generate or the income that they create off of doing that, right? And then obviously Tax Plan IQ wins because they use our software. So it's a true win-win-win, and that's one of the things that and all the companies that I built and even run and stuff prior to that, was really hard to always quantify. And with TaxPlan IQ, it made it really easy. And so kind of fell in love with that, fell in love with the mission that we have here. And it's just been it's been an amazing ride. And we, continue to just blast through barriers and create, new opportunities in this industry. And honestly, I don't think we've even scratched the surface yet, especially when it comes to like financial advisors. About 30% of our clients are now financial advisors, but we just haven't even touched the surface of all the things that we can do for you in the industry. So pretty excited about that. So that's a little background, and I want to jump into what we're going to cover and then go through it in detail. We're going to go through a short little demo of the software for you guys today as well. So I'm going to go off camera while I do that. And then at the end, we're going to come back on. I'm going to for Q&A, anything like that. If you do have questions as we go through things today, though, do not hesitate to put them in the chat or the Q&A box so that our team can see them. If they can answer them, they will. Otherwise, we'll save them for the end, and I'll get to all of those for you. So does that sound good? Hope it does. We'll jump in here. So first and foremost, let's talk about what we're going to cover today, right? We're going to talk about what high net worth clients want in 2025 and beyond, and how to position yourself as the trusted advisor for high net worth individuals. We're going to talk about a framework with partnering CPAs. We're finding more and more, as I said, we're growing by leaps and bounds in the financial advisor space, and we're finding more and more the collaboration with CPAs is really making it go for both parties and the client. So we want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing there, and then how tax planning can be your secret weapon this year. And then, as it says, stay on to the end because we do have a free bonus for you. It is our probably our most requested guide and most popular, the 7 high impact advanced tax strategies for high net worth business owners. So stay on for that. All right. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about the modern high net worth client, right? The modern high net worth client seeks a comprehensive, proactive partner that really encompasses all facets of their life, from investing and saving to estate planning and tax planning. And I'm willing to bet that all of you in some way touch in these areas, right? So we're going to talk about, there's different levels of financial advisors, right? There's very advanced that may be doing everything I'm going to talk about today. There's ones that maybe not be doing. There's in between. The goal is not to really say you do this or you don't do this or that sort of thing. The goal is to say, where can we help you get a little bit better? Where can we help you make a leap where you haven't made before to really make a difference in your business and for your clients, right? And I'm going to kind of kick that off with just a kind of a question. And the question is if a client asked you today, how are you different from your competitors? What would you say? Now, you obviously don't have to answer that, but you've got your probably standard response to that. And in working with a lot of financial advisors and asking this question one to one and kind of getting feedback, we found that the majority of financial advisors typically say the same things when it comes to differentiation. And that's because for most, they're using many of the same methodologies, processes for wealth management, and obviously, too, there's rules you have to follow. There's certain things you can and cannot do, right? So there's some limitations on that. But a lot of times it's the same things, right? So if I ask 10 financial advisors what sets them apart from their competitors, I'm probably going to get pretty consistent, at least some of the things across them, right? Clients are seeing that too. And the hard truth really is that the business model, and we hear this a lot too, is under attack more and more, right? Traditional investment management is becoming more and more commoditized in a lot of ways. And I say a lot of ways because there's a lot of different ways. We have things like robo advisors. That market's growing 28% a year. And I hear it all the time. That's not my market. That's not my client. Well, these continue to grow in their capabilities and everything else, and they continue to become more advanced. So you have a ton of others. Like it seems like just about everybody's getting in the game these days. You got Robinhood and everybody else that are going after it. And so more and more, some of these solutions become appealing for, some clientele and everything. And I think the biggest thing we see is that the high net worth client, more than anybody, needs a completely, different type of work. They need a completely different type of approach, right? And that's where you can really set yourselves apart. And more, this is something that these guys are really hungry for in finding something outside of the norm to work with. We talk about obviously accredited investing and all that stuff and non-traditional investments, and you guys probably participate in some of those or work with some of those for your clients. But there's this big opportunity that we're going to talk about as we go through today that a lot of times isn't being touched. And so let's just set the table, right? High net worth, what does it look like? You guys would say the same thing, probably 1 million to 5 million in investable assets, entry level, high net worth. 5 to 30 million investable assets. That's kind of that core market, of high net worth. And then 30 million plus is that higher end net worth, right? They typically have multiple income streams. They're business owners, executives, successful professionals, retirees, and they typically have very complex financial situations. And when polled, the things that are most important to them, obviously wealth preservation. I can speak from this in just my own right. My goal is wealth preservation and growth of it, right? Estate planning, legacy planning, investment performance. But time and time again, the number one thing that these clients consistently say is the most important is tax minimization and optimization. And the question is, and you guys get this, I bet, all the time, right? how do you help me lower my taxes? Why am I paying so much in taxes? And if you don't have a really good answer to that question, especially in a time like what we're in now with tax changes coming and, inflation the way that it is and all that stuff, right? Why am I paying so much in taxes? You got to have a great answer and capability in that area because they're looking for someone who does, right? And I think that is it. That's one of the key things to separate yourself in the marketplace in this area. So the missing piece, right? Most financial advisors, they'll focus on obviously asset allocation, the fund selection, the retirement planning, the risk management, even estate planning and that type of stuff. But generally, due to like missing the tools or just know-how, only some address proactive tax planning. We're going to hone in on that today. Proactive, not reactive. Tax efficient investment strategies, business tax optimization, and then obviously tax aware estate planning. And and you guys know this. The high net worth clients are getting attacked from all angles, right? Federal income tax, at the high level, the state income tax, depending on where they live, California, New York, those states, or and then you have capital gains, net investment tax, the bane of my existence over the years was selling companies, additional business taxes as well. And it's 50% plus, right? That can be going to taxes. So let's talk a little bit about just some of those ways that typically, kind of the low-hanging fruit of how you can reduce some of these taxes, right? So the first is, for example, just entity optimization. And again, some of you guys really know this, right? And so some of you may not. So some of these concepts may be brand new to some of you. Some of you may know them really well. The goal here is just kind of open the mind to be thinking about what else is there out there? Because I'm going to talk about that more as we go. So entity optimization, right? Just by the type of entity choice and how you set it up can do a lot for your taxes, right? So you can reduce self-employment tax, and optimize the business income taxation. So a sole prop, if they are one, most high net worth probably not sole prop, but we do see it from time to time, right? So a sole prop earning 400K restructures to an S corp, saving 25 plus or more annually, right? Just by the self-employment tax changes. Um, Cash balance and defined benefit plans. You guys know about these. They reduce self-employment tax, optimize business income taxation. But like an S corp earner that is doing 400K can save well in excess of $100,000 in taxes just by taking advantage of that strategy. Captive insurance. This is typically, you see this with a little bit bigger entities that can afford it, but huge advantage in being able to use and do your own insurance and then deduct those premiums as a tax advantage, right? And so, example, a construction company pays 500K in insurance premiums to their captive and they write off those premiums and they keep control of the money. Section 1202, right? This qualified stock exclusion, right? So this allows the owners of a C Corp to exclude up to $10 million in capital gains if you hold the company for 5 years. Wow, a startup sells their company for 12 million and pays zero capital gains on 10 million of it. That's an awesome strategy. Cost segregation, bonus depreciation, another, kind of low-hanging fruit. You see this one a lot. There's great companies that manage this stuff and but accelerates depreciation deductions, allowing for that, real estate owners take larger write-offs up front, right? Instead of that 27 and a half year time period. So, a real estate investor that buys a $2 million apartment building can write off 600K in year one, right? Reducing that taxable income. 1031 exchanges for real estate. You sell a property, you roll it into another one of equal or greater value. You're going to save the taxes on that. And you guys know this is a whole just strategy of how people just keep rolling gains and building real estate portfolios for many years. That continues to grow basically tax free. Backdoor, Megadoor Roth, you guys, Mega Backdoor Roths, you guys probably deal with these a lot, right? This allows high income earners to contribute to that Roth IRA even when over the limit, right? Converting to after tax. So you've got high income earners that can contribute a decent amount and ultimately that can grow tax free. So, advantage there. Tax loss harvesting, you guys deal with that all the time, right? $100,000 in maybe in losing stocks, right? We've had a 10% correction, the fifth fastest on record over the last few weeks. Maybe there's some tax loss harvesting to take that can, go against something in their business that's doing well, really well. Maybe they're selling a property or something, right? And they don't want to 1031 exchange it. So, tax efficient Giving, right? Donor advised funds, right? Business owner donates 500K in appreciated stock to a donor advised fund, avoiding capital gains tax, taking a full deduction. Things like opportunity zones, right? Allows investors to defer or reduce capital gains tax and ultimately eliminates tax on future appreciation. And as I said, these are just like some of the more basic examples of tax strategies, right? At Tax Plan IQ, we have over 125 tax strategies from, some that are more basic up to very complex. And then there's state-specific versions really to help maximize tax savings. And you can pair examples like this with lesser known strategies that like we have to have a massive impact on savings for your clients. And so just, example, pretty standard one. You can see this all the time, right? You've got a business owner making 1 million a year. They're going to pay 350K in taxes. We can restructure them to an S corp, save 45K, add that cash balance plan, 72K in savings there, customize or optimize their real estate depreciation, save some money there, you know, and the I think the big thing, the question on the screen says, the serious question is if you saved a client 178,000 in taxes, do you think they'd ever leave you? Well, probably not. But I think the better question is, especially as you guys are growing your business, you're out prospecting the marketplace, if you're able to tell a client on their first meeting with you, we found a way to save you 178,000 in taxes. Do you think you'd get the business? And I think that's probably what we see and where we see financial advisors really crushing it is using tools like TaxPlan IQ, we'll talk about more in a minute, to help find those savings proactively ahead of time in working with a client and then showing them, hey, we can do this for you and work with you to do that, right? That is a great way to separate yourself in the marketplace. So when somebody says to you, how are you different than other financial advisors? And you say, well, we can proactively save you in taxes over the next 10 years or whatever it is. Now that gets somebody's attention. To get my attention as a high net worth investor, right? So that's the place to be thinking about and how you can utilize these type of solutions. So tax planning, your competitive advantage, right? While other advisors are competing on, their investment returns, the fees and and that type of stuff, or we have this access to these type of funds and the others don't, or this, you can really differentiate with that true tangible tax savings, really measured in dollars. Remember I said at the beginning, win, win, win. We know exactly what the savings are. We know exactly what the opportunity is. Strategic advice, right? That you won't find from, robo advisor, an advisor who doesn't have tools to identify true tax savings. I think it's important, like what we've done at Tax Plan IQ is really taken the time to, you know, commoditize this, or not commoditize it, I should say, but really take 80,000 pages of tax code and distill it down to the tax strategies that work the most amount of time for the most amount of taxpayers that save the most amount of money and then automated how to suggest that, based on the client's tax return automatically, right? And I think that's where that's the key, right? It's not that you guys don't do this or can't do it. It's a lot of times you don't have the time for it, or it's hard to comb through all that, right? So we've taken it and I guess more democratized it than anything else, right? So I'll show you that here in a little bit. But five reasons advisors like yourself can build trust with tax planning. Number one, you're proactively able to identify tangible tax saving opportunities. Number two, you can demonstrate expertise in an area that clients care deeply about. Remember, the number one thing they ask for on the list is how to save in taxes and maximize and make sure that they are most efficient. You can connect tax strategies to broader financial goals, right? Establish yourself as their financial quarterback. Earn the right to manage more of their wealth. Now, the other thing too, think about it is like a lot of these guys, you can save $1 million plus in taxes. We see that all the time. And just imagine what you can do with that, with a client investing that appropriately, right? Maybe their kids, college is easy, but maybe they can set their kids up for a lot more future success. Maybe they can retire 5 years earlier, right? The impact to people's lives by being able to efficiently and maximize their tax position and then put that to work for them is one of the greatest things I think you can do for anybody. So talk about how do you start having these conversations, right? Because we get that a lot. Like, okay, great, I get it, but how do I start? How do I break into this? How do I start having these conversations with potential clients or those I've introduced to? Well, it's really simple, and you guys are great at this, right? Great at engaging people and talking to them in that sense and everything. So, has anybody reviewed your tax return to identify missed savings opportunities? Easy one, right? No, they haven't. Well, let's do that. How are you handling the tax implications of 2025? We've got, well, we don't know what's going to be in that tax bill yet, but it's coming, right? We're going to see. Would you be interested in a second opinion in your tax situation? Why not, right? Who wouldn't want to take a look at that? And imagine, like I said before, being able to say, hey, we identified 80, 100, 200,000, $1 million in tax savings that we can capture through this year with specific strategies that we've identified, right? It's concrete tax savings and it creates that credibility and that trust. And so tax planning services framework, right? So the next question we get a lot of times is, okay, how does this work? What does it look like for most financial advisors? And this is just the examples from those that we worked with our client base and getting feedback and learning how they do it, right? They've got kind of the entry level, which is the tax return reviews and opportunity kind of identification, right? That's where you start. And then there's that tax efficient investment strategies that they apply to it, tax loss harvesting optimization, Roth conversion. That's a lot of that low hanging fruit as we talked about. Advanced is then going into that business entity optimization, retirement plan design for the tax savings, estate tax minimization, the advanced charitable planning, and then obviously a lot of those kind of accredited strategies too that you can do that are available. And some of this, guys, th this is probably one of the biggest things we've seen. You're going to have to work with their CPA on this, right? And I'm going to talk about this more, but the door that this opens to the CPA for collaboration is incredible. And we see more financial advisors being able to break the ice of working with the CPAs through utilizing tax planning, tax strategies. Um, then really then you really see elsewhere. It's amazing how if you do it right, and I'm going to talk about that, how that collaboration becomes a 1 + 1 = 3 and really makes not just makes a difference for a client, but opens up all kinds of opportunity for you and that CPA. So we'll talk about that more in a minute, like I said. Um, People ask, like, how do people structure this? How do they charge their clients, or what do they do? So there's a few ways that we see financial advisors go about doing tax planning and optimization. Number one, they'll have flat fee packages, and it's all depends on your model, guys. It depends. Are you fee based? Do you take a percentage of assets? Like it really depends on how you're based, right? So if you're fee based, you can build, the tax planning side into your fees if you want, right? Or have it as a package. If you're more percentage of asset based, right? Maybe then it becomes where you're after the AUM increase and the insurance opportunities that you can now find. You save $1 million in taxes. Let's reinvest that and let's really make it work for us, right? So there's that side of it. And we see both sides, and then we see in between, right? We see people that are, have a small fee, and then, obviously they're working on, investing all of that savings and everything. So you kind of have to decide which camp you're in, or if you're kind of that hybrid in the middle, but the opportunity's there for it. And then we also have something that, like, I do no fee. It's just part of what I do to set myself apart. And then we work on the investment side, and that's where we play because that's where we can maximize things. We see a lot of people do that too. So there's the cool thing is that there's a lot of opportunity to create the model that makes the most sense for you and blend it with what you already have. It doesn't have to be set in stone. You don't have to do it XYZ way or anything like that. It's really what makes the most sense for you and your business and your clientele. All right. So with that said, let's talk a little about CPAs though, because the option one is, as you see, is you can do it yourself. You're going to use TaxPlanIQ to deliver that tax planning, and I'm going to show you here how you can get a tax plan done in 5 minutes in a few minutes. But you don't share any revenue, right? Full control of that client relationship. But what that means, and this is what we find, is most financial advisors do not go this route because then you got to implement the strategies. And ultimately, you got to work with the CPA anyways to implement the strategies. So option two is really where the focus is. So you collaborate with their CPAs, for that implementation of the different tax strategies. The CPAs love it because you're bringing a new revenue stream to their door. The most CPAs, as we know, live in that feast or famine world. This is the time of year. They make all their money, for the most part, or the bulk of their money, this time of year doing tax prep work, and then they got to live off it the rest of the year, right? Tax planning is a completely different business. It's a consistent recurring revenue business because for tax strategies and implementing them and ensuring that they're done, you've got to do it throughout the whole year. There are different deadlines for different things throughout the year. You got to make sure the client, has things that they've got to do throughout the year to ensure that they are maximizing the strategy and doing the things necessary for the strategy. So it's a completely different business model than the tax prep world. And that's why typically the a tax planning client is worth 22 times more to a CPA than a tax prep client. I'll say that again. A tax planning client is worth 22 times more than a tax prep client, right? And so CPAs are really looking for this. They're trying to move into this world because, they're getting commoditized. I mean, the IRS has free filing now. You've got AI filing taxes. You've got, more and more the Intuits of the world, free for a lot of things. So, CPAs are really looking for a way to change that model, right? And we obviously do a lot of work in that area. So you can help them with that. You can bring those opportunities to their doorstep, work together on it, identify that savings, free it up. You can invest it, take care of the client. The CPA's revenue grows. They can better serve their clients in a more proactive way. Everybody wins, right? And so that's where we see most financial advisors play. Now, let's talk a little bit about this, though, how to approach CPAs. You're going to focus on the on value for their practice, right? Well, when you're bringing revenue to their doorstep, that's value, right? Not to mention you're helping the mutual client be taken care of as best as possible. Emphasizing that complementary service, establishing clear roles and responsibilities. This is important. Hey, we identify these strategies, but you are the one to implement them. That is your world, CPA. So you handle that. Obviously, we know that we told the client there's going to be a fee to do that, right? That's fine. We're going to handle the investment side and take care of that. We're going to make the best situation for this client. Start with small collaborations. You build trust gradually, right? Once you've done it for one client, there's that discussion with the CPA about other clients you might be able to do it for together and continue to grow. And we see this. We, just did a webinar last month where we brought CPAs and financial advisors that are doing this really well together. And the savings, millions of dollars have been created for in client savings and hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue created because of that. So really exciting to see. The red flag, as it says, though, CPAs that are stuck in their way and are only going to do tax compliance. You're going to run into that. You're going to have a client that you're doing tax planning for, right? That is going to bring in their CPA, and their CPA is going to be like, well, we don't do that. And that's okay. It's going to happen. And so at that point, that's a discussion between the client and their CPA about doing this because that may be a need for them to rethink who they're doing business with from a CPA standpoint, or they're going to have to push that CPA to help do that. And that's where the client needs to handle that, right? You can only identify the opportunity, right? And if they don't want to take advantage of it, that's you've done your work. You've done the best that you can do. So keep that in mind. So finding the right tax planning CPAs, though, probably obvious, right? You want people that are being proactive, or maybe already doing some planning. They've got that capacity during non-tax season, right? They work with similar client profiles. They're open to collaborative relationships. They value comprehensive financial planning. Typically, if they're dealing with high net worth in these clients, they're going to be CPAs that do that. And so it's just working out the relationship between the two of you. But the opportunity is there, right? And none of it can happen, though, without the right tools to help you identify that true tax savings. And that's where TaxPlanIQ does come in. That's where we play, right? Because it's having that ability and that ability to do it quickly and easily for you. That is where you're going to identify and find that savings and create that opportunity, right? You don't need to be figuring it all out. It needs to be a few buttons and it's clicks and it's done for you. And so That's what we do. We identify tax saving opportunities instantly. We generate professional proposals and presentations all in our software. It provides really easy to understand strategy explanation. So every strategy has detail around all aspects of it so you can learn it. And then obviously, if it's suggested, put it to use for a client. We calculate the ROI for each strategy, and you don't need any tax expertise. Effectively, we bridge the gap between the old way and the new way. And the old way, from a financial advisor standpoint, is you don't know what you don't know, right? 80,000 pages of tax code. There are so many opportunities, but it's really hard to comb through them all and figure it out. We've done that, right? And kind of limited to manual tax planning. It's more time constrained. It's hard to implement it. It's inconsistent, cumbersome. It's hard to really quantify and drive that value to the client, right? The new way is complete visibility. It's all automated, unlimited capability. The software is doing 90% of the work. It's easy to implement. Gives you that holistic approach. It's scalable, it's actionable, and it drives tremendous value to the client. And so TaxPlan IQ makes it easy to create these opportunities. And we've proven it. Over 800 firms, over $1 billion in savings, averaging over $40,000 in savings per client over the years, right? And it continues to grow. We're about to update these stats, and I know they're going to be a lot higher than this. And we see it all the time, right? TaxPlan IQ saved my clients millions of dollars. In the last 6 months, we were able to charge 300,000 in new fees, fee-based advisor, obviously. In just 6 weeks, I've already generated an additional 44,000 in revenue with just 6 tax plans. I wish that I'd done this 5 years ago. We see these things a lot. But yes, you may be thinking like, hey, I'm not a tax expert. We know, right? That's the whole point of why we exist. We're the expert. Our software is the expert. We're going to provide the expertise that you need. We're going to start with those simpler strategies. You build knowledge with them. Our software is going to suggest more complex ones. You can read about them. You can discuss them. You can see if there's a fit. You can talk to the CPA, right? Partner with the CPAs for implementation, opening that door. And, when it comes to the CPA side, I don't want to risk my relationships. We've heard that before, right? It enhances your existing relationships. Again, if you can walk into somebody and say, hey, I found a way to save you X, Y, Z in taxes, in addition to all the work that we already do for you, it really opens up that discussion and makes you be more proactive and serve your clients at a much higher level, right? And you can start with lower risk clients. You can build confidence through early wins and do that. But I think the most important thing is really the fact that you can go to new heights in what you can do on behalf of your clients and provide for them. That to me is one of the most important things. That's how you set yourself apart in the marketplace.